Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another lesson after a short hiatus. We spoke about last time, we are in the middle of chapter 37. We completed the part where the rabbi is speaking about forgetfulness, that forgetfulness is an unholy trait. And the rabbi tells us that in order for a person to remember, they need to enunciate. That's why prayer and study must be verbalized, enunciated. If I'm reading a newspaper with my eyes, I probably a day or two later will not remember. If I want to remember something, I have to enunciate. I have to say the words. Saying the words, even though it's an external power of the human, speech is a very external, it's unintelligent, so to say, yet it comes directly to the mind, and therefore it engraves, it helps remember events forever. Yes, Harry.
I thought one of the greatest gifts that God gave man was the power to forget, so don't keep thinking about all the horrors and all the.
It is one of the gifts Hashem gave us when it comes to tragedies, that the ability to forget helps us continue on with life. Otherwise, life would come to a standstill, no doubt. However, in the scheme of things, you cannot put it on the highest level. The real gift is memory, to remember. In fact, the Torah gives us commandments to remember certain events and never forget. And we must remember, I need to remember that I am committed to my wife. What if she says, didn't you promise me when we got married? And I say, oh, I forgot. Why are you laughing? It happens. And I'm paying a price for it, right? There are things that you must remember. I tell my children, remember who is the daddy. Unfortunately, they forget. They speak the way they speak to a friend. I says, what? Am I your friend? And sometimes you would say, yeah, I forgot that you're my father. And I said, don't ever you forget that. In our life, I'm deviating a little bit, but I think it's the idea. The priorities the Torah and God created us with, if we follow those priorities, we would have a wonderful environment created for ourselves. If I take upon myself, that's why you say I do, by the way. You need to enunciate, and it doesn't help. We know that, but at least it helps a little bit. What do people do to renew their vows, right? You do a anniversary after 20 years, 25 years, 50 years. Anybody is familiar with that?
Yeah.
What's the idea there? To speak from this perspective, to speak up, I should say. That's why in the marriage, we have a cycle in at least the first many years of the marriage.
When you're out that cycle? I'm a good student, I think.
No. Like, I think somebody.
It's just topics in midair.
I heard someone calling your name.
Okay, we'll catch up later.
Well, so good.
She's a sweetheart.
I just started saying that's why in the Torah lifestyle, in the many years of youth, we follow a cycle. There is a cycle of the period that the women go through, menstruation. Part of the reason is that when the time comes for the couple to reunite, they use words, they speak to one another and express how much they love each other. And the reason is because the speech will enforce that commitment. If you go an average couple, and this is not an average couple, everybody is perfect here, They go through a lot of difficulties because they forget. So at the night of the wedding, they promised, they made vows that I will forever be there for you. And unfortunately, a year goes by, 2 years go by, and unfortunately, it's not the same. In the Jewish way, the best way to guard is to use words, to continuously use words. When we use words, it reinforces or reminds us of the relationship and the commitment. By the way, that's why there is such great value in looking at videos or photos of the marriage. It reinforces and brings back the commitment that we made.
In like secular education, when you learn to read, like they never want you to read out loud. Like that's a sign that you're not or a strong reader.
Really?
Yeah. Like if
That
you're
is
reading out loud.
this is a total contrast to what we're speaking about.
Yeah.
And I think I shared last time when we studied that as opposed to a library, when you go to a yeshiva, the humming sound is for someone unusual, someone who is not used to it, is deafening because you hear it's a very loud sound. When you go to a library, as soon as you raise your voice, they ask you to be quiet, right? Because you're disturbing other people's concentration. And the same applies in many other aspects. So memory, by the way, memory is far greater than forgetfulness. Forgetfulness is only for tragedies, for bad situations. In order for us to cope with, part of the coping mechanism is to, so to say, weaken the pain by forgetting the event. But it is in no comparison to the power of memory.
There's a say, forgive and forget.
Forgive and forget, right?
Yeah.
Now, says the Rebbe, in order so forgetfulness is impure, equals to impure. Holiness is remembrance. So if you have a student, I shared with you, Rabbi Meir's wife, Beruria, she saw a student studying, and she said, how come you don't speak up when you study? Because this way you will never remember what you studied. And that's what happened to that student. In other words, in order for us to remember, we need to enunciate and say it out loud so that we are not just making a commitment to ourselves, or if in the eye of the public, people should see that we are committing ourselves or we are into it. Simply, it reinforces the memory.
That's why when you pray, you're supposed to move your lips or.
Right. Enunciate.
Yeah.
You must. Otherwise, you did not fulfill the mitzvah of prayer, by the way.
But then what happened with the Amida?
Now, same. You have to say it, but quietly. You have to move your lips. Now, even though speech is a very external power, there is no intelligence there. Yet it will reinforce the memory far greater than any other power. Now we're moving on to shifting to another topic within this chapter. It's a very large chapter. It will take us a couple of lessons. The rabbi is going to talk, here is the introduction of Rabbi Weinberg, the one who put together this book, a whole introduction to the purpose of the positive commandment and the prohibitive restrictions that God gave us. How many commandments God gave us? 613. How many of them are positive commandments?
216.
Close. 248. Corresponding to the body limbs.
Yeah.
How many restrictive commandments?
365.
365, corresponding to 365 body veins that carry blood. I don't know how the details, I was trying to search about the 248. There is a book who gives, generally speaking, about body parts. The body parts are referring to a part of a body that has bone and flesh, and it can come up with 248. The 365 is very unclear. But according to Zohar, there are 365 veins that exist in the body that carry blood. I should tell you that the word Torah is made out of how many letters? 4 letters. Taf, Vav, Resh, He. If you take the Torah, the word Torah, and translate it into numbers, how much are you going to get?
613.
Oh, close. 611. Taf is 400, Vav is 6, Resh is 200, so it's 606, and Hey is 5, 611. If you read that, these are the Torah that Moshe gifted us, right? Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe, the 5 books of Moshe. Now, if you go back to the 10 commandments that came down, how many commandments God directly spoke to us? Only 2. In other words, the Torah includes the 600,
The command.
the first and the
Two.
second. I'm
Yeah.
your God and do not worship any other God. And right away they could not hear anymore. They asked Moshe to say the rest, and that's what Moshe did. So we have 2 commandments that God gave us. The other 6, the remaining 611, Moshe was the one who gave us. And therefore the word Torah, which is a book of instruction that contains all 613, is made out of the numerical value of 611. This is an introduction to introduction. I want to read his introduction because I think it's self-explanatory.
Did you look?
We are on page 502 towards the bottom. Up until here, are we following? Where is Ali?
602 at the bottom.
Up until here, the Alter Rebbe has spoken of the effect of mitzvah and the power of one's animal soul used in performing it. He now states that not only does one's animal soul ascend from Klipat Nuga to holiness when he performs the mitzvah, but also all the food and drink that sustained one and gave him the strength to perform the mitzvah are likewise elevated from the dominion of Klipat Nuga. Just a short introduction. Klipat Nuga is, we call it a shell. Klipa is shell or a peel. Nuga means neither here nor there. It's not positive, it's not negative. It all depends how you are going to use it. You can elevate it into holiness, or you can lower it into impurity. Until now, the Rabbi was speaking about studying Torah, prayer, doing a mitzvah, eating on Shabbat. Now the Rabbi is going to shift and tell us that even when I'm not engaged in actual mitzvah, but I am doing what's right, living a healthy, quality life according to God, I am at that moment, take every part of the energy of the universe, elevating it to holiness, and vice versa. So I take Nuga, I ate breakfast today, I drank coffee this morning. The coffee took away my headache so I can smile and look at people's eyes and talk to them, respond to them. By doing so, I've elevated that coffee, the drink. That was Nuga, and I made it holy. So serving God, unlike what some people might think, and probably you heard this idea before, but now the Rabbi will elaborate in details. Serving God is not necessarily when I study Torah. Serving God is not necessarily when I perform a mitzvah by giving tzedakah. Serving God is when I live a healthy life and I care for my body and my surrounding. As long as I am doing it for God's purpose and I'm doing it right, I am serving God, and therefore all the energy, all that's involved is elevated from Nuga into holiness. Is the point clear? And the Rabbi is going to talk about the prohibitive commandments, and the Rabbi is going to use an example. Based on this idea, the Alter Rebbe explains how the vitality of all physical objects of this world, which currently draw their vitality from Klipat Nuga, will be elevated to the realm of holiness. So if I have a car, I bought myself a car, and I bought the car so I can come to synagogue on a weekday, and I can take people to the airport, and I can go and meet people and study Torah with them, that car became holy. And therefore, every time I use the car, I'm taking energy from the car, making it holy. So car is Nuga, it's not forbidden. If the car was stolen, if the money was stolen, if I cheated in business to earn a living, and with that I bought a car, it's bound with impurity and it cannot be elevated. But if it is a car that I earned with my own sweat and tears, or a gift, or whichever way, then all that, anytime I use the car to serve God, or not to serve God, to live a good life, I am elevating it to holiness. And therefore, every moment of my day can be a holy moment, even if I'm not at synagogue. I may not be at synagogue for a year, yet I may be a very holy man. There were times where people would look at human beings and say, this guy is so holy, even though he does not put on tefillin, he doesn't wear tefillin. But they dedicated their life to save. During the Holocaust, Jews, non-Jews, who put their life just to save the free world, to eradicate Amalekites, to eradicate evil monsters. By doing so, what they have done is they elevated themselves and their life to a very holy level because they have dedicated themselves to serve God, even though they did not fulfill mitzvot. Yet the greatest mitzvah is to live a good life. And that's what the Rabbi is going to talk about. Every Jewish soul is given the ability, I'm reading on page 503. Every Jewish soul is given the ability and responsibility to elevate a portion of this physical world which belongs to it. This elevation is accomplished by means of the 613 commandments, as mentioned. There are, however, two categories of mitzvot, the 248 positive commandments and the 365 prohibitive commandments. Similarly, the elevating effect of mitzvot on physical matters takes two forms, one positive and the other negative, that is restrictive. Before we go to the two categories, I just want to, are you familiar with the story about the rich man and the wagon driver that they got mixed up in the job? No?
Yeah.
Okay. I shared it on many occasions. I heard it from the Rebbe, but the source is the previous Rebbe. There was a very wealthy man, a businessman, a very honest man, a scholar, that used to travel for his business. He hired chauffeur, someone to drive the wagon. One time they came around noon or early afternoon on a Friday to a town, and they checked into a nice hotel. The wagon driver, the chauffeur, was one place, and the businessman another place. What do you do after noon? You go to the mikveh, take a bath, you prepare for Shabbos, you get dressed for Shabbat, and you go to synagogue. If you are in town and you don't have business to prepare the house, to mop and sweep the floor and cook, so you go to synagogue earlier and you say psalm. That's what Jewish people do. So this man goes to the businessman goes to synagogue, goes to mikveh, and the way out he has his bag with his old clothes and Shabbat clothes he's wearing. He went by, and there was another buggy, another horse and wagon that got stuck in the mud. And the driver was looking for someone to help him. So he turned to the guy and says, "Can you help? Together we should with the horse, pull the wagon." And the mitzvah it's a commandment that if you see someone in need of help, especially if there is a pain to the animal, it's in the Torah, you may not keep a blind eye. So he tried to help. The problem is he doesn't know how to handle horses. And if you don't know how to handle horses, not only, as the Rebbe said, it not only doesn't help, it makes it worse. So they tried and tried, they tried, the horse goes back and forth, kicks and splashes. By the time it was over, he was both dirty, filthy with mud, as well as scratched. He had scratch and blood all over his knees and his hands. It was a mess. His shirt was torn already. And that's how he walked to synagogue, because he had no other sets of clothes. It was already late. So he walked into synagogue and he sat down. He felt he tried to do whatever he can. The wagon driver, who was not a rich man, prepared himself for Shabbat also. He went to the restaurant, purchased food for Shabbat for himself and perhaps for other people, but he didn't have money. He didn't buy like the rich man. The rich man bought for a lot of people. He was hoping to bring guests into to his hotel room. The wagon driver, who really knew how to take care of horses, could have helped. He had no idea. By the time he went to the mikveh, it was later when the whole scene was over. He goes to the mikveh, dressed nicely, goes to synagogue. He's a guest. He's a new visitor in town. At the end of services, he turned around and he sees a lot of poor man, and he says, "Would you like to join me?" And they see a nice dressed man, clean and shaven, and he never been in town, so they assume he's very rich. So they try, can I bring my wife? Can I bring my children? My brother is in town. By the time he was done, there was a minion following him. The rich man, on the other hand, was looking for, he really had enough food for 10 men. And he was asking people to join him. But no, they said, if that's the way you dress, we can't imagine how tasty the food is. So the rich man ended up all by himself eating the Shabbat meal with food for 10 people. The driver ended up with 10 men, and there was not enough for 2 people. So they had to share small portions. They left unhappy and unsatiated, and the rich man had to throw away a lot of food. After 120, both of them came to heaven, and God said that they switched roles. We call it neshamot ato'ot. To'eh is getting lost. Those 2 souls got lost in a mission. The wagon driver was supposed to be there to help the horse and the wagon pulled out of the mud. He would have done that in 1, 2, 3 without getting dirty. The rich man was supposed to be in synagogue, the way he's dressed, bringing guests and feeding the people. Yet they each took the other's role, and we know it didn't work out for both. This guy could not feed his guests, and the rich man couldn't help with the horse. So what's the solution? They must go back to earth to correct it. They will have the same situation over, where this time they will take the correct role. Each one will do what they're supposed to. That's called, now, is there someone's fault? Can you blame somebody? Can you say someone is bad? No, they both really tried hard. The wagon driver didn't see, and if people asked to join him, he couldn't say no. He had no heart to say, I'm sorry, I have no food. So he was sharing with them. The rich man also had no heart to ignore. He couldn't say to them, I never handled a horse in my life because I always hire people. He just knows the mitzvah is to help, so he's going to help. Why do I say that? Because we need to assess what is my mission here on earth, and realize that anything that's not part of my mission is not my role. Therefore, getting involved is wasting God's energy. I can talk about it forever, and don't think that I am perfect. I make those mistakes all the time, but I constantly try to remind myself about questioning whether it is my role or not. So when people ask me to get involved in certain ways, many times I would say to them, I'm sorry, it's a very worthwhile cause. It's a very important activity, but that's not my activity, because somebody else can do a better job. If people ask me advice, I'm going to use an extreme, simple. People ask me advice on financials. What stock they should invest? We all agree that if I gave him advice, he's making a bad choices and I'm making a bad choice. Is that correct? Last time I advised somebody, they lost everything. And it's not figuratively. My sister 25 years ago asked me, because if I can help her, and if I have an idea, and I gave her an idea, she put in a couple thousands, and today it's worth 0, nothing. I learned then my lessons, and today I know it for sure. So when people say, what do you think about the market? I say, whatever I think, I'm going to keep to myself, because if I share it with you, it's not going to be good. The same is about when people in front of me that have no clue about Torah give advice about Torah. And it happens all the time. You're not allowed to do, you are allowed to do. And I say to myself, since when you are entrusted with this mission? That's what the rabbi is going to talk about. This is, to me, a very, very powerful point. We need to continuously learn. God gave us so many minutes, so many seconds. Don't underestimate the value of a second, because 1 second each day amounts to another hour. You cannot, so when people ask you to get involved, would you like to go out with me shopping? Would you like to go out to the movies? You have to ask yourself, is this my mission here? Am I actually contributing? Perhaps If I would question that, I will realize this is not my role. If it's not my role, I better use my time differently. And that's not just when other people ask me, it's about me myself, asking myself, what did God give me life energy for at this moment?
Now you know I send people to you when they ask me.
Huh?
Now you know I send people to you when they ask me. They don't have the answers that they're looking for. Seriously.
Thank you.
I'll tell you another thing also, how do we know what our mission in life is?
A very good question. How do we know what our mission in life is? We don't. Therefore, we try our best.
My mother used to say that also, I'm doing the best I can, but sometimes it's not the best you can. And that's also debatable, but I never want to say that.
Sometimes you try your best, and if you do not see the results, you sense that this is a failing, but it is not failing. God, perhaps that's what God wanted. I'm going to use a personal example. Last week, this time, today is Monday night, Monday afternoon. Last week, this time, I was wondering what to do to leave in order for me to leave the country of Israel. I didn't have clothes. I flew to Israel for 5 days. I did not have clothes for more than 5 days because I always go light. I only use carry-on. I do not carry luggage. I didn't have clothes for more than 5 days. I had an Airbnb, and the host had a son that's getting married, so he needed that Airbnb. There was no other Airbnb. In addition, I didn't sleep at night, Thursday night at 3 a.m., and since then, I wouldn't sleep. Friday night, you couldn't sleep either because you're afraid of the sirens are coming, and the experience was horrendous. And then afterwards, you can fall asleep because the only thing is, when is the next one coming? And actually, it would come 2-3 times a night. So people didn't sleep all day. Then all the shops, no public gathering, forbidden for public gathering, no shops to go to. So what do? I stayed in my room, in my Airbnb, just thinking about my experience and where I am. And it was more than depressing. It made me very, very unhealthy, mentally and emotional. I wasn't doing well. So then I said to myself, and now I don't even know how long I'm going to be here for, because nobody's leaving the country. I have 3 sisters who are stuck in Cyprus, and they're trying to come back. There is nothing going on. Suddenly, somebody told me, you can try to leave for Jordan. Cross the border to cross the border is not so simple, as I witnessed later, because you have to cross.
Like the Allenby Bridge?
There are 3 courses. Allenby Bridge is in Jerusalem. Then there is the Jordan Valley, and then there is another one. Cross to Jordan, and then you drive to Amman. Amman is an airport, and try to catch a flight to Europe or to United States. I don't think. So I go. So this is a dilemma I'm faced. What should I do? Now, there is no doubt that there is taking a risk. We're taking a risk to go to Jordan because I cannot mask myself. I cannot hide who I am. So I go out. So this is based on this. The Torah tells us that whenever in doubt, ask friends, ask people for advice. Sunday afternoon, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, between afternoon and evening service, usually people would sit and study, but I instead would socialize because these are people that I don't see. Most of them are elderly, much older than me, parents of my children my age. So I turned to them and says, "What?" They all asked me, "So what are you going to do? What are you doing?" Because as I said, it was very depressing, physically taking a toll on me. So I said, "What do you think about Jordan?" And on Sunday night, a man that really is very involved said to me, "Do not try it." Why not? He says, because the government issued a warning against crossing to Jordan. There was an issue by the secure office. It's dangerous. They can kidnap people. There are some from Hamas, the Iranians there. They will try to kidnap somebody. So this is Sunday night. Came Monday night. It's already getting worse for me. Sunday was the worst day, actually. And Sunday night, I wrote a list of what activities I can do. And that calmed me down. So on Monday, Sunday, I couldn't talk to people. Monday, I was able to, I had a very productive day. I really did a lot of projects. I did preparation. I did stuff but I want to run away. There is nobody. You can't see anybody. You can't go anywhere. And in 2 days, I have to vacate my place, and I have no clothes. So Monday night, I summoned 3 people. They're all 3 over there. I says, I have a question for you. Jordan. What do you say about Jordan? So the first guy said, I told you already yesterday, and I don't think it changed. The second guy says, I have 3 reasons why you shouldn't go. You shouldn't try it. Number 1, because I'm your friend and I tell you not to do it. Number 2, it's very dangerous. And number 3, he gave me another reason. I don't remember the third reason. But he started with, so I realized Jordan is off, and there is no other choice. Then at midnight, I get a text. If you want to leave the country, you are on the list from Governor DeSantis. At 12 o'clock, in 10 minutes, we're going to have a conference. You must be on the conference.
What?
You must be on a conference. At first it was WhatsApp, then I moved to Zoom. 12 o'clock, there was a siren. So we ran to the shelter, and then at 12:45, we started the conference. A guy comes, it's from Tampa actually. He says there are 1,600 names. I'm one of those 300. If you're willing to go, if not, somebody else, it's dangerous. But we're going to go with a state senator accompanying us, as well as security forces from the Israeli, the Jordanians, and American forces. And we're going a group of 300. You have to be ready by 8 o'clock. All packed, and we'll tell you where to go. Now, this is already a different story. You have a state senator, Jake Collins from Hillsborough, which I'm forever thankful to. He said that there is security forces in the Israeli side, the security forces in the Jordanian side. We are 300 people as a group. And the way we're going to go is Jordan, Cyprus, and United States. Now, it changed the whole thing. I accepted it. And by 9:30, I had to be in Tel Aviv in a parking lot somewhere, and a bus came and took us, and it became a journey of 3 days. But everybody is extremely thankful for that. I was able to make it home. I cannot take it. Those decisions were made because I assessed to myself, what does God want from me at this moment? When advisors told me don't do it, although it was very painful for me, I realized it's hard. I'm biased, and therefore I refuse to see reality. And I asked someone who is unbiased, and they told me, don't go, it's dangerous. But later on, I'm sure those people would say to me, if you go with a group of 300, and they are all US citizens, everyone had to be a US citizen, and there is a state senator that's accompanying them, and that's a company that already rescued in Dubai and in Kuwait. They've established many, many rescue missions all across the globe, actually. It's a whole different ballgame. Why did I bother you with this story? Just to share that you need to always assess, is my role at this point being involved in the activity and doing what I'm doing, or say to yourself, perhaps somebody else can do it better, or I can use my time in a better way. I question this continuously. I train myself, perhaps. What the rabbi is saying here, remember, just like money, we don't throw away money just because somebody likes it. I don't give people money just because it makes them happy. My money, I worked hard for, and therefore I guard it and I use it appropriately. Time is much greater than money, because money comes and it goes. Time will never come back. The day today is gone. It's over. So what am I involved with? Now, again, I'm not perfect. I'm as guilty as you can imagine. But at least I know where I am. Sometimes I say to myself, why am I involved with this? For what? For whose benefit? Just like the lost souls, the men intended to do good. They both tried very hard to do good. Is it fair? It's not fair. But the reality is, God gave you the ability to help to pull horses and not to feed 10 guests. And the fact is that it got mixed up, and on both ends, the job wasn't done. And therefore, a corrective measure has to come. So as soon as we value time, I'm using time or energy, my energy, in the appropriate way, we are being able to peel off a lot of layers or a lot of activities that we're involved with because we are not contributing, or someone else contribute a lot more, and I can use my time and talent for something else. I think I made myself clear. So I don't give you advice about medicine. I don't give you advice about finances. I don't give you advice, period. All I do is study Torah, and if you benefit from it, great. If there's somebody who can teach better than myself, perhaps my role would be to study with people who are unable to access that greater teacher. But we have to assess ourselves all the time and ask, what's the purpose I'm involved? And that's what the rabbi is saying. Everything in my life is klipat nuga. Nothing is holy. Why? We discussed before and we'll discuss again. Therefore, if it's klipat nuga, I have a choice when I'm engaged, either to elevate it or to lower it. If I didn't do anything good with it, it goes down. So when I use my time to give someone financial advice, what I'm doing here, I'm taking my energy the moment those few minutes, and I lower them. If I give someone a lesson of Torah, or words of encouragement, or an idea to live a better life, or a given direction, whatever is that's beneficial to that person, I took that time and elevated it. So until now, the rabbi was speaking about mitzvot. Here, the rabbi is talking about day-to-day activities that have nothing to do with a mitzvah, just to do with our day-to-day life, the way we live our life. Any questions so far?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
When you're in the middle of the dilemma, you sit down and recall your
Friends.
lesson and readings, Tanya, Torah, everything else. Did you?
Yes. But the dilemma is found, I am biased. So I will find a solution that I want to find. In the Torah, you can find everything. You need to have someone who is unbiased. So if I have a medical dilemma, looking in the Torah is not necessarily the right answer. Asking 3 doctors is the right answer. When I have a financial dilemma, let's say someone gave me a gift, financial gift, and I want to know, what should I do? Should I pay my credit card debt or should I invest? Or in crypto. So what I do is I go and ask 3 unbiased individuals that have no benefit for whatever decision they give me. And then I follow that decision through. So I have a dilemma. Should I cross to Jordan or not? I ask people, and whatever advice they give, it was very painful for me, actually. It was very difficult for me to accept.
I imagine.
Especially as I failed to mention that on Monday morning, a member of this community with a family decided to cross Jordan. And he kept calling me from Jordan, saying, oh, it's great. There is no fear, nothing. He kept pounding on me that there is no danger and everything is great. He ended up being taken back to the border, and he had to be speaking Arabic. He speaks Arabic. He had to erase all his text, so there should be no Hebrew there. Then he had to flown into Egypt, to Cairo, so to prove that he's a real Muslim. He had his share. He left a day before me, and he landed after me in Sarasota. But that's a different story. The bottom line is, I was lured into very hard, very, it was very challenging for me to hold back from.
How much it brings in your learning? It gave you peace. Oh, some peace.
The peace, I wouldn't
Some
call it
measure of
peace,
peace.
but I knew that what I was doing, getting stuck in Israel, is at the moment I had the peace of mind that I'm doing the right thing. What will happen? I had no idea. I was expecting to be in Israel for another 2 weeks. I didn't know I'm only going to manage. But I knew at the moment when they told me it is unacceptable for you, it's not healthy, it's dangerous, you're risking your life from crossing, I know I'm not going to do it. Simple as that. By the way, I was very calm. Even though I had those continuously challenging, I was very calm because I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm not so to say, put in a place where I have no clue what to do.
If I remember correctly, when you left, you said you might be gone for a couple of weeks. So as long as you were there already, did you want to come back?
What?
Hey, you left here, asking how long you're gonna be gone, you said, I'm quite sure I might stay a week or 2 weeks.
Well, when I left, I wanted to stay for more than 5 days. I wanted to stay for 11 days, another week. But when Thursday night came, I knew for sure I'm not staying any longer. It was impossible. Just impossible, because all you do is stay in your Airbnb, it's a studio apartment, and all you think is about your family and how bad it is here. This is the reality. So it did not sit well with me. It really affected me. And therefore, a day shorter. By the way, it ended up, I had a flight back on Tuesday morning at 5 a.m., the original flight, which was canceled, void. I left 9:30 in the morning. I ended up, except that the original flight was taking me to Tampa in 17 hours, and this one took me in, how many? 72 hours, but I made it back. So that's what the rabbi is saying. We're not talking about engaging in a mitzvah, giving tzedakah. We talk about engaging in day-to-day life activity, eating breakfast, going to work, socializing, driving a car. When I do it for the sake of living a healthy life, I'm taking that energy and elevating it to holiness. To explain, now the rabbi is going to talk about the different categories of positive and restrictive. To explain these two aspects of elevation accomplished by the two categories of mitzvot, the Alter Rebbe uses for each category an analogy drawn from the human body. The 248 positive commandments correspond to the body's 248 limbs, and indeed, the function of these mitzvot resembles that of the limbs. Every organ of the body is a vehicle for a particular faculty of the soul and brings that faculty into active expression. Similarly, every positive mitzvah is a vehicle for the expression of a particular aspect of divine will and brings about a godly revelation, just like my body limbs. I have a hand, I have fingers. They are there for a purpose. The fingers are to hold something. The feet are allow me to walk. Every one of the positive commandments is a limb that enables the soul to express itself in one way of serving God. The prohibitive commandments, numbering 365, correspond to the 365 blood vessels of the body. The function, too, is like that of a blood vessel. The blood vessel acts as a conduit, channeling blood in the right direction so that it will not be randomly wasteful dispersed through the body. Similarly, the prohibitive commandments prevent the life force of holiness from being funneled off into the klipot, thereby increasing the power. They channel the life force towards deserving recipients. Here is a summary about the 365. What they correspond to the body vessels that contain blood. What if that vessel is punctured or is not there? The blood would spill all over the body, and God forbid what it can cause, a major chaos, from a disaster. Says the Rebbe, a prohibitive commandment is there to channel God's energy into the appropriate body limb, to appropriate activity and moment. What happens if there is a puncture, there is a hole? Then the energy is spilled all over in the spiritual realm of the soul, and that's very devastating. That's why the prohibitive commandments, the 365, are compared to the blood vessels, just like they are able to protect the blood and allow to funnel it into the right places, not to go randomly everywhere. So are the negative commandments. If I strict myself with those 365 prohibitions, I'm able to keep all the blood, all the energy from God going into the bright places. I hope I made myself clear. When all the souls of Israel, representing the vitality of all physical matter, fulfill all the commandments, drawing down God's light by performing the positive mitzvot and confining it to the realm of holiness by observing the prohibited mitzvot, they elevate the vitality of the entire world from klipat nuga to holiness. Says the Rebbe, what happens if all the Jewish people will keep Shabbat one Shabbat? What happens if all the Jewish people will keep the mitzvot? We bring the body to a perfect state. The body is there is the micro and the macro. The large universe is coming to a perfect state. No bleeding anymore. No negativity, no headaches to the universe. It will be a perfect universe. This, in summary, is the subject of the following discussion. Can we continue to make myself clear? No questions, right? Says the Rebbe. An additional virtue in mitzvot involving action, aside from the function in elevating one's animal soul mentioned above, aside from what we discussed until now, says the Rebbe, the vitalizing soul's energy clothed in the utterances of letters of one's speech in Torah study, prayer, or the like, or the energy clothed in the performance of mitzvot involving action. It doesn't matter what mitzvah, what activity, it can be speech, it can be action, derives its entire growth and vitality from the blood, which is of klipat nuga. Where do I have the energy to study Torah? Where do I have the energy to do a mitzvah? It all comes from the blood. The blood gives me life. Meaning, all the food and drink that one has eaten and drunk, and which have become blood, these were under the dominion of the klipat nuga and drew the vitality from it. So when I ate breakfast or I drink coffee, it's nuga. I didn't commit a sin because it's kosher, but it's in nuga. It turns into blood. Now, if I use that blood equals energy into serving God is by giving good advice, going to work, socializing, caring for my family, I am elevating it to holiness. Now, that the person performs a mitzvah with the energy derived from this food and drink, this klipa is transformed from evil to good and is absorbed into holiness by means of energy of the animal soul that grows from it. That is, the energy nourished by those objects that derive the vitality from this klipa, which has now clothed itself in these letters of Torah and prayers, or in the performance of this mitzvah, which actually constitute the unveiled expression of the inner aspect of God's will. And therefore, their vitality, the vitality expended in performing mitzvot, is also absorbed, like the mitzvah themselves, into the blessed Ein Sof light, which is His will as expressed in mitzvah. The rabbis say, again, when I use that energy from the morning breakfast, or I use that car to take me to socialize or help someone, that energy itself becomes holy, elevates itself. By the way, that explains a very peculiar point, and I don't know if people pay attention to it, but food, consumption of food, takes away a very large portion of the mitzvot. And one can ask why. In other words, somebody told me a third, over 200 mitzvot are involve food. I say 2/3, 400. Let me explain. You have first food itself. Not every type of food is kosher, right? Most animals are not kosher. Kosher animals you have to slaughter. It's a mitzvah. You have to remove the blood. It's a mitzvah. You have to cook it prior. You cannot mix it with dairy, right? Then in Israel, the first 3 years of the tree. Every 6 years, the 7th year, the farmer cannot till the field. And in Israel, 10% has to be given to the Levi. A portion has to be given to a Kohen. You have to bring sacrifices. It's all about food. There is an untold number of mitzvot in the 613 commandments that involve restrictive or positive. You have a mitzvah to eat matzah. You have a mitzvah to eat sacrifices. You have a mitzvah to eat on Shabbat. You need to have latkes. You need to have hamantashen. You need to have on Rosh Hashanah apple and honey. Every mitzvah, every time you do a mitzvah, you use wine. Friday night, wine. Shabbat is over, Havdalah and wine. Get married, a cup of wine. What does wine have to do with the marriage? Last time I checked on television, when people get married, they exchange vows and they give rings to each other, right? No, in Jewish law, you gotta have wine. You don't have wine, no marriage. Really, you can't make a blessing without a cup of wine. Not only that, after the marriage, you have 7 days of parties. Sheva brachot, full meal. You need to have a full meal for 7 days. What?
Wine.
You have to wash hands first. You have to eat challah and a full meal, and then you have a cup of wine at the conclusion. Food is the most used object in Jewish law in serving God, both in positive and restrictive. It goes on and on and on. You don't mix fish and meat. You don't mix fish and dairy. You're prohibited from eating milk and meat. And as I said, in Israel, the list goes on forever. Not allowed to plant 2 trees next to each other or 2 species next to each other. It's called kilaim, a mixture that's forbidden. There is so much involved food in a positive and the restrictive. I believe it's because it is to remind us that serving God is not just when I study Torah. Serving God is when I eat. Serving God is when I socialize. How do you socialize? By serving food. That's why food is the lion's share of serving God in the commandments, in both positive and negative.
No fish and dairy.
Huh?
No fish and dairy.
So they have bagels and lax, right?
Right.
So Ashkenazic Jews say no milk and fish.
No milking.
Sephardic Jews says no dairy and fish.
So
Like herring in cream
In cream, right?
is no.
Ashkenazic Jews, you find kosher herring in
yeah. So
but
it's-
Sephardic Jews, Sephardic Jews. Oh, it's forbidden.
Yeah.
Now, when I grew up in Israel, there was no such thing as bagels and lax. Now it's everywhere. But I came to America, I see bagels and lax. They smear with cream cheese and they put a lax. I said, what's going on? So they explained me, it's not, the provision is dairy, the provision is milk,
Milk, not just dairy.
not just every dairy
Right.
product. But Sephardic Jews are very strict. Even so, the Sephardic Jews do not have real cheese. They would have natural,
Tofu.
non-tofu. But real dairy, they will not have of lax and
So
tofu.
for Shabbos, you have the fish portion, then it's cleared, then you have your
Right.
meat.
Now that's another category. Don't eat milk, fish and meat at the same together.
Mhm.
So on Friday night, we have fish. We rinse our mouth by saying l'chaim or by eating soup. And then you can eat the meat.
Can we mix the?
By the way, I'm sorry for cutting you. There are at Michael's Anise, a lot of times hors d'oeuvres, they serve tuna
Yeah.
rolls or sushi and meatballs, meatballs and 2
Yeah.
crackers. I always say to them that they should be not on the same tray and should tell people this is meat, this is fish, so people will know. The same is about serving on a plate. Many times they would have on a plate fish and they will bring chicken or they will bring, and I say to them, remove the fish from the table. So at least sometimes these are dilemmas that people can't even fathom, but that's part of the keeping kosher. It's not just the products are kosher. You can't just mix them. Yes, Mark, I'm so sorry.
Fish cakes.
No problem. No problem whatsoever. In fact, a lot of, when I grew up, part of the gefilte fish is because people couldn't afford real fish. So they'll take the bones and the skin, grind them, And add, what else did they add? Flour and eggs. The eggs will glue them together, bind it. And that's why I hate it forever. But egg is part of this.
Well,
All right.
The Leo, the what, fix and onions.
We will continue next week.
Sure.